YouTube working on it. YouTube working on it. Oh, there we go. Apparently YouTube was talking to us the whole time. So hi, we're here again with the Healthy Happy Home series. Today we've got Andrea Giles at this moment. So hi, Andrea. Thank you for meeting us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Nice to be here.
YouTube working on it. Wonderful. Oh, now I'm getting apparently YouTube feedback. Talking to us the whole time. So hi, we're here again with the Healthy Happy Home. Just kidding. Okay, we'll see. I don't know what YouTube's gonna do. That'll be adventurous either way. Anyways, thank you for being here, Andrea. Can you give us about 10 minutes here? Just introduce yourself, kind of give us a little bit of your backstory, probably about 10 minutes here of what kind of challenges have you been through in your life?
Yep.
Just give people a little bit more to connect with you as a person and then be able to share with us your tools after that and about the things that are helping you be resilient.
You bet. Okay, so I'm Andrea Giles, as Livia said. I live in Montana. I have 11 children. So a little bit about me and why I do what I do. As Livia said, I coach women who are working through marital issues, particularly infidelity. And several years ago, I went through my own experiences that brought me to where I am now. And I remember when I was like at my lowest point, I had people coming to me and asking me for help and going, me too, me too. And I didn't quite know how to help them because I was trying to figure out how to help myself at the time, right? But I made a promise that I would get through it and that I would be able to help people, that I would get through the other side and be able to help other women. And so for me, I was married for 16 years. I had 6 children and moved all over the place for my first husband's schooling. We lived abroad all over the place. And throughout the whole time, there were little things that happened all along the way that I knew were kind of off, but I wasn't quite sure what to do. And so I just kind of waited and waited and waited. And fast forward about year 15 in our marriage, and I started asking some pretty tough questions. I was in my prayers personally going, what do I do? What do I do? And in year 16 of our marriage, I knew that I needed to end the marriage and that it was no longer a safe place for myself, for my kids. And it was the hardest decision ever. It was the hardest decision I've ever made. There were so many things on the line. I'd always been a stay-at-home mom. We were living in the Bay Area where my first husband was a lawyer for Google. He made a good income, and I was walking away from all of that and knowing that I needed to get my family to a safer place. And so I did. I went ahead and moved forward. And then just 7 months later, my first husband was involved in a car accident and died. He was 39 years old. And I was once again facing a different kind of loss, as were my children. And at that time, my oldest was 15 and my youngest were 5-year-old identical twins. And so there was just a lot to deal with in a short amount of time. And fast forward, I got remarried to a widower who lost his wife on Valentine's Day to cancer. She had cancer for 7 years and passed away. And both of us lost our spouses in the first year. And so they had 5 children, and we dated for a while, a couple years before we were ready to take that leap. And I moved to Montana to be with him. When we first got married, we had 10 kids living at home. It was very chaotic, to say the least. And now, as of just like a week and a half ago, we're down to 6 kids living at home. It's starting to feel a little more manageable. But so I started, like I said, I had people reaching out to me saying, hey, me too. Can you help me? Can you help me? And I did my best to help with where I was. But I knew that I wanted to get the tools, get the training, get the whatever I needed to really be able to help on a deeper level. And so I started to go back to school. I went to college and was taking classes to be a therapist, and was actively doing that when I was introduced to a life coach named Jody Moore. And then she introduced me to the life coach school with Brooke Castillo. And when I first started learning about those things, it was so different than any of the therapy that I had gone to. I'd gone to lots of therapy. And it was so different that I'm like, what am I even listening to? What is this? It caught my attention. And it was one of those things where it was like Heavenly Father like smacked me upside the head and said, Andrea, this is what you need now. Here you go. And I knew it. And so I jumped all in. I went and got trained. I have ever since then, I've just known that I need to build a business. And so I've gone all in. So last year was my first full year in business. This is my second year, and it's been wonderful. It's been very, very rewarding to be able to help my clients on a much deeper level and really help. I know this whole thing is all about creating resiliency. And what I do is I help my clients shift the way they're viewing their situation so that they can show up as like the hero in their story instead of the victim. And it just changes everything for them. So tell me what questions you have about that, Livia.
Well, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
You bet.
And what an inspiring and heart-wrenching story at the same time, to be able to be like, wow, I'm on the other side of that. So
Yeah.
I honor your pain and where
you.
you've been, and
Thank you.
celebrate where you've come and where you've landed.
Thank you.
Where you
so
continue
much.
to grow, I'm sure.
Yes.
So of all the things that you went through this whole ordeal with family loss to new family and raising 11 kids plus 2 grandbabies, I think I heard on the podcast.
Yep.
So all of that rolling into this, what is one of the top things that you find helps you to be mentally resilient? Where up here you're like, okay, I don't need a spiral.
I think the thing that has made the biggest shift completely for me, and what caught my attention when I first started learning about what I now teach, is learning how to manage my thoughts, learning that I don't have to believe every thought that crosses my mind. Because what we do is, like, if we start to go down a track, it's like hopping on a train. It's going to take us to an emotional place. It's going to keep creating the same kind of results for us in our life. And when I started to learn that I could choose to not hop on that train, biggest shift for me, like that I had a choice in that I could choose even what I was going to think. I could choose what I was going to feel, that I had power over that, agency over that. And up until then, I'd heard, your thoughts matter. It matters what you think, but I didn't actually know how to work my thinking. And so I think with being resilient, learning to shift the story, learning to play with your own thoughts and question them, question your own thoughts, question your own experience, and kind of poke holes at it and go, now, is that really true? Is that really, really poking at it and asking questions about it, learning to ask good questions of yourself can be such a relief, because where we get so burdened is where we think that these painful stories, particularly about ourselves, are true. And when we can just give that a little bit of breathing room and poke around at it, it gives us so much more space to choose what we want to believe and what we want to think, which creates resiliency, allows us to move forward.
Beautiful. What are some of your favorite questions when you say ask yourself better questions? What are maybe your top 2 or 3 of your favorite questions to ask yourself?
Good question. Okay, so one that I ask myself all the time is, what else am I missing? What other information am I missing? So, for example, last night we were having a little family meeting with our kids, and we were talking about how we're so quick to jump to conclusions about things. Like, we get a little bit of information and then we're so quick to react. Oh no, this is terrible, whatever, right? And so a question I ask myself a lot is, what else am I missing? What other information do I not know? And it slows me down emotionally from like jumping on that train, slows me down and gets me into a space of curiosity to kind of look around and ask questions like, what else could I be missing? So that's one question. Another question that I love is, what would love do? What would love look like here? Because you can't go wrong with that question. Like, if I'm dealing with, even with myself, like even if I start feeling bad or negative towards myself, I can ask, what would love do here? And of course, love would never berate myself, right? If I'm dealing with other people, a child, anybody, like, okay, my instinct, I want to be mad, I want to be blame, whatever, but what would love do here? What would love look like here? Some other good questions are, do I like my reasons? I ask myself one all the time. And that's one I use all the time with my clients. And what that means is oftentimes we think that we want to do something or not do something, but we don't really check in with ourselves about why. And when we really dive in, we might not like our reasons for it. Like if we want to do something because of the way that we want others to perceive us, that might not be a reason we actually really like or that we're really in integrity with. But it's like if you want to say yes to something because you don't want to feel guilty, it's like, do I like that reason? Maybe not. Am I doing this because I actually want to? Do I like that reason? Yes. Okay, carry on. So that's a few of the questions I like to ask myself. I like to ask my clients a lot. They're good ones.
That's awesome. We were probably right before you even hopped on here, but I love how it kind of coordinates even with what Les was talking about in the last session, was just this place of love.
Yes.
And being able to ask yourself those better questions and create those stories. So I love that they're kind of all coordinating here together, even though you guys have no idea who each other even is, never met each other, and we didn't coordinate at all. So I love that comes up because it's true principles. And when multiple people are saying, hey, I found this in my life, and hey, I found this in my life. Hey, I found this in my life. That it's like, maybe there's something to that.
Yeah.
That it's actually working for lots of people, and they didn't talk about it beforehand. It's not just we're telling you the stuff, but it really works, and it matters. That's
exactly.
Good.
Yep. Truth is truth, right?
Yes, truth is truth. So let's drop to your heart. So in your emotions, what have you found is one of the most powerful tools for you emotionally to be able to stay in a good place and to not spiral emotionally?
That's been one that I have come a really long way with. And I'll give a little history here. Okay. So there was a lot of deceit, a lot of betrayal in my first marriage. And when I got remarried, one thing that happens is if you don't clean up your thinking, it comes with you. So even though I was married to a completely different person, completely different life, I still had the brain of kind of looking around and waiting for the other shoe to drop. And so it was a little rough. It was a little rough. Like if my husband was out and about, my brain went to places like, oh, he's probably up at her grave because he just wants to be with her, like really suspicious. And it just created a lot of pain for myself, a lot of drama for myself. And what I have learned is how to push a pause on my emotions. I've learned how to not, like I can feel it all day long. It can feel real. It can feel intense even, right? But I can learn to push a pause on it and question it and go, just because I'm feeling this way does not mean that I have to obey it. It doesn't mean I have to react to it. It doesn't mean I need to be mad at it for being there. I can just be a person that sometimes feels this way. And it used to be that I would judge myself for feeling that way in the first place. Like if jealousy popped up, I would be mad at myself for feeling jealous. Like, what's wrong with me that I feel jealous? And now sometimes it just pops up. I'm like, yep, I'm a person that's having a human experience that sometimes feels jealousy. And I guess I'm hanging out with jealousy right now. And so the biggest tool that I have learned is, instead of like that instinct to like react to it, right? To like freak out or something must be wrong, to just hang out, do absolutely nothing. Just be like, yep, I'm going to feel this right now. Just calming down, breathing into it, allowing it to be there. And when I allow myself to be a person who feels whatever it is, even though if I know I created it with my own thinking, I don't make myself wrong for that. It's like, yeah, we do that sometimes. And I just like ask it questions like, why is it here? And like, where do I feel it in my body? And I don't make it a problem that it's there. Does that answer that question?
Yes, it does. On that one, I also love asking, what are you here to teach me?
Yes.
Like, what am I supposed to learn from this moment of anxiety?
Yep.
Or whatever it is. And also realizing that feelings aren't facts, they're feedback. It's just telling us what's the physiological state of my body. That's what your feeling is telling you. So to be able to say, okay, this is what I'm feeling. but do I want to? And then activating that law of agency, being like, okay, what am I going to learn from this? Okay, got the lesson. You can leave now. And just letting it pass through you rather than get stuck in you. Because when it gets stuck in you, it just wreaks havoc mentally, emotionally, physically, everything.
That's right.
That is not a fun place to be at all.
Yep. It's true. For sure.
Awesome. Okay, so let's go spiritual.
Yep.
So when you think of your most powerful spiritual tool that keeps you connected to your heart, to God, to what that is for you, what is it that helps you to stay strong spiritually?
Two things. Prayer, of course. I love connecting through prayer, but sometimes a form of prayer for me is journaling. And I feel like Heavenly Father lets me know who I am through journaling, because I do different journaling prompts where I imagine myself as who he thinks I am and write it down. And I get like blown away by it. Like, whoa, that's who you think I am? And when I attach myself to that and to who he thinks I am, who he created me to be, it gives me the courage to show up in the world as that person, or striving to be that person. And so I try to make it a habit of journaling often about who he sees me to be, and then trying to match up my day-to-day actions with that version of myself.
I love that. Just to tap in and really connect to who is it that I am.
Yep.
And who is it that I am that I don't know that I am yet? Like, who is that person that I'm becoming? Who's that person that he sees in me?
Yeah.
Because, you know, you have those kids, I'm sure you've had the same experience where you see that kid and you're like, oh, they have so much, they could do this and they could do this. And I see that within that little seed of curiosity, or that seed of desire that they have, you see all this amazing stuff that they could do. And God, I feel like God sees that for us too.
Exactly.
Like, okay, yep, you know this much of it, but there's really this much more that I can give you.
Yep.
So just trust me.
Exactly. Like there's more, but I love those little glimpses that he gives us to go, this is what's possible. And it's just amazing to know what he sees in us, what our potential is, and then trying to step up to it, right? And getting over our own self-doubts to be who he wants us to be.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is one that wasn't on my docket to ask you, but I just feel like I'm supposed to, so you just go with it, and you can decline if you'd like.
Go for it.
But can you give us an experience, maybe like take us into a moment in your life where you felt like the whole world was caving in and you were just in that place of desperation, and the steps that you took to walk yourself out of that?
Okay, let me think about that. Well, there have been a few. There have been, I mean, one of them was pretty dramatic. Do you want to hear a pretty dramatic one?
Go for it. We've got people, dramatic, I'm sure, who have had really dramatic, or maybe are right in the middle of something that really need that right now.
Okay, so this is probably one of the most pivotal moments in my life that will go down as undeniable, that I was not alone. And what happened is, this was after I was divorced, and my first husband there's a family reunion in Utah with his extended family. And I had picked up the kids from him on a Sunday morning, and he drove back to California to go to work. And I stayed back for a few days, and it was Wednesday when I was heading back to California. And I was on the road. I was in the middle of the desert in Nevada, and my phone kept ringing from this number in San Jose. And I'm like, who's that? I wonder. And I was on the freeway and I didn't pick it up. And then finally it kept ringing. So I picked it up. And the lady on the other line asked me if I was related to my first husband. I said, yes, I was married to him. And she proceeded to tell me that morning he had died in a car accident. I had all 6 kids in the car. I was in the middle of nowhere, not a gas station, just desert. And I was 9 hours from home with all of my kids in the car. I pulled over on the side of the road. And as you can imagine, just everything just flooded me. Like, I remember looking at my kids in the car and going, their life just changed forever. Their dad is gone. And then I was thinking, I just so many things like this, what, I still cared deeply about my first husband. I still do. I still care about him. I'll always care about him. And wondered what happened, like what, just like, it was just all so unreal, and thinking, how am I going to get home? And how are we going to be okay? And all these thoughts, right? And I'm standing there on the side of the road, and a car pulls up, and a lady gets out of the car and walks right up to my face. And she says, "I'm here for whatever you need. I'm here." And I told her what happened. I said, "I just found out that my kid's dad was killed in a car accident this morning." She didn't know me at all. I had California plates. She had Nevada plates. She said, "If you follow me, you can come to my husband's work and he can give you a blessing. And then if you come to our home, you can stay with us for as long as you like." And in that moment, it was just like, I can't argue with it. It was, I have felt like if God was standing in front of me, it was him saying, "Andrea, I know what's happening right now. I see you. I'm aware. I know that it's hard. You're going to be okay. Get back in the car. Keep going." And I did. And I got back in the car and I kept going. And I stayed at their home that night. And the next morning, she drove me home. She drove me 9 hours home, took me home. And I got to sit in the back with my kids. And I look at all of that. And when you ask how I handled it is by trusting, even though it was really, really hard. It was really hard. It was, just like all of my kids grieving again and not being able to fix it, and not my own grieving a second time around in a different way. And what got me through that is trusting that it was working for me, that it was for my good, and trusting that it was working for me, even though it was brutal, trusting that it was for my kids' good, even though it was brutal, trusting that there was a bigger plan to all of it that I couldn't see, and that it would be okay, and to keep moving forward. And so even as getting remarried and working through learning how to be married again, right? Learning how to raise other children that are not your own. That same kind of message has really gotten me through, of going, knowing that you're being watched over, knowing you are where you're supposed to be, and knowing that the hard things you're dealing with are for your good, and moving forward. So
yeah,
there you go.
We found that that's true. So looking back from where you're at now, and be able to look back at that, you in that situation of, oh my gosh, how hard was this? Like, what blessings have you seen where you're like, okay, that was for my good, and now I've seen these things come of it years in the future?
So many. Oh my gosh, so many. My kids, they're resilient. My kids are tough. They know how to handle hard things. They know to trust. Myself, I know that even when things get really dark, it doesn't last, and it always lifts, and it always gets better if we're looking for it. Spiritually, I wouldn't trade any of it, because I learned about who God is in those times. Like, I learned who he is because I had to hold on tight, right? We learned to hold on tight. And I personally, because of those experiences, I feel like I'm in a unique position to be where I am, coaching women, being married to a widower. I understand loss. I understand grief. Being married to, having all these kids who lost a parent, they've all lost a parent, and being able to help them. Another interesting thing about me is my dad was killed in a plane crash when I was 2 days old, and I was raised in a blended family. And so I feel like, as I look back over my life, that I've been prepared to do what I'm doing, that the groundwork was laid for what I'm doing at the beginning of my life. I haven't always felt that way. It's been through learning to view things differently. I used to feel kind of second rate, like that I wasn't good enough to have like a good dad that was really good to me, or a husband that wanted to like tell me the truth. And I carried that around for years. And then I learned to tell a different story and learned that he must really love me to allow me to go through those things, to shape me to be who I am now and doing the things that I'm doing now. And it sure feels different to look at it that way.
It does. So what guidance would you give someone who maybe feels like they're in that place? You said you coach women with helping with infidelity.
Yep.
What if they are in that place and they feel like, okay, I've got to get divorced. I don't know what the heck I'm going to do. I feel that weight on me of restructuring my entire life and everything falling apart. And what the heck, it wasn't like I thought it was going to be. Like, what advice or guidance would you give them for where do you go from here? What is your next step? Because we know we all have to trust God. We need to, change our thoughts and make new stories and stuff like that. But practically, like, are there certain things that you found that you did or you wish you had done that would have helped you most in that moment?
One of the things that I do that sounds a little counterintuitive is I take my clients through really going to worst case scenario, like really stepping into it, because so many of my clients are so afraid to make a move. And it goes both ways, whether they stay in the marriage or not. They're kind of frozen, right? They're kind of frozen and they're so afraid of, if I stay, then it means like things have to get better, which means I have to show up in a different way. I have to do some things different, and that feels scary. If I leave, I don't know how I'm going to provide for myself. I don't know how my kids are going to be okay. I don't know, all the questions. And so we spend a lot of time actually really exploring all of it and going there and feeling the discomfort of it. Because when we can actually like go there and feel it and like really start looking for solutions within that and going, what would I do? What would I do? How would I take care of myself? How would I help my children? What kind of support would they need? What other support do I have that I'm not thinking about? Really stepping into it. And then in the other way going, okay, so if I were to stay, these are the things that I would need to see. These are the things that I would need to, the conversations I would need to be willing to have and the questions I need to be willing to ask, and allowing the other person their growth without trying to control it or manage it. Can I do that? What would that look like? What would that feel like? What do I need to be willing to, like, what fears do I need to set down and not live from? Like, so it's just stepping into what it actually would be like. And when we do that, it kind of loses its, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not as scary.
Its power is gone.
It's power. Yes.
Power over you.
Yeah. You're like, oh, I actually can do that and not die. Like, I can actually do that. And so then they're choosing with more agency because they know what they're choosing, right? They're like, oh, yeah, I would need to do that. I can do that. I would need to do this. I can do that. And they're losing that grip of fear that they have, and they're setting that down, and they're actively choosing from this abundant place of what is truly best for them. And it's not fear-based anymore.
Well, I love the action of choosing, because when you choose it, you're way more in, rather than feeling this happened to me. It wasn't my fault, but it's happening and now I'm the victim of it. To really choose in to this is the life that I do want. And if you're choosing in and it's still hard, I'm choosing into this hard over that hard, because that hard's going to get me closer to where I want to be.
Exactly. Hard either way, right? But at least you're picking it on purpose, knowing that it's intentional. Yeah.
Well, and that when we partner with God, then we're like, I'm choosing peace through my hard. Was that in? It was something else we were talking about yesterday with a different group I was talking to. We were talking about our feelings plus fear. So if we are saying, hey, I'm feeling sad, and then my sad is going to, oh my gosh, the world's going to collapse, we're adding fear to our feeling, and it's magnifying the bad. And then if we say, okay, I'm feeling sad, but I'm choosing to trust that happiness is coming, then we're adding faith to the feeling, and then that can get us upward. So we're adding more joy rather than adding more fear.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. It's choosing a different experience for yourself within the experience you're having, right? creating a very different way of dealing with it.
Yeah, there's this thing, I can't remember how exactly it goes, but something about that challenges and hard things happen, but suffering is optional.
Yep.
And so the suffering we get based upon the view and the lens and the story we choose to put around whatever emotion or experience that we're going through.
Perfect. Yeah.
Helps us to be a little bit better. Do you have any final thoughts for us?
Oh, I guess my final thoughts, and speaking of resiliency, is whatever any listeners are dealing with right now. I know it's been a rough year for a lot of people, right? So many things thrown at us that none of us have dealt with before. And I guess my final words would be, if I had a wish for any of you, any of the people I come into contact with, it's just to remember that you already have within you so much wisdom, so much truth, so much light. It's already there. It's already there. And we often get so paralyzed to look for our own wisdom, and we go looking outside of us for someone to tell us what to do. And where you will find the most peace and the most forward movement in your life in ways that you want is when you tap into your own wisdom and have the courage to follow through with what answers you get, and show up and like have the courage to do the things that feel very scary, but that are moving you forward, progressing, moving forward, feeling like you're doing something instead of being frozen in fear. And you already have it in you. You're wiser than you know.
Let me be your second witness to that one. It is so true. And that we'll be guided step by step. God knows, your heart knows, and it will guide you to what you need next. And sometimes I find that is, they guide you to someone else. Like someone would be guided to find Andrea, be like, wow, okay, I resonate with your story. You can help me. And that can be part of your wisdom guidance. But in other times it's just within you, and you just know this is where I need to go next, or I need to talk to God more, or I need to go for a walk, or whatever that is. Big things, little things that you'll be guided.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you, Andrea, so much for being with us.
You bet. Thank you.